Let's enter Weird Showbiz History.
Australian bird under his arm. Would you welcome Rod Hull and Emu?
He would leave the stage and Emu would start attacking members of the audience. Emu would grab hold of a lady's boobs, go under the skirt, or grab a guy by the goolies.
Rod Hull was a millionaire, but he let it slip through his fingers.
It's loosened the aerial. You'll have to go on the roof and fix it. No, I'm not going to go. Leave it.
Rod Hull was on the roof of his home trying to get a better television reception when he fell.
Fame isn't just a drug. It's a drug that sometimes comes with a very large, very aggressive, flightless bird. One moment you're on top of the world. The next, you're gone. A cautionary tale of ambition, excess, and a simmering resentment to the very thing that made him famous. So let me tell you the story about Rod Hull and Emu.
At times he hated Emu. Absolutely hated him.
Before the chaos, before the feathers and the fame, there was just Rodney Stephen Hull, born in 1935 on the windswept Isle of Sheppey. Less a glamorous launchpad for stardom, more a testament to the sobering realities of the British seaside. He wasn't a natural entertainer. He was lanky, slightly awkward, and he had a stammer. His real ambition was to be a writer. He dreamed of escaping his working-class roots and saw his ticket outlying somewhere on the other side of the world, Australia.
Oh, Emu, give it back.
Down under, he found work as a lighting technician for Channel 9 TV, eventually graduating to on-screen roles. He co-created and starred in Caper Cops, a children's show that was essentially Keystone Cops, but with more sunshine and deadly spiders.
What? In the box.
Right.
By the late 60s, he was a writer, a performer, but he was struggling to make a real impact.
My soul, the talking kangaroo.
He needed a hook, a gimmick. He missed that certain je ne sais quoi, which is French for giant bird puppet. And in the dusty confines of a TV props cupboard, he found one. Amidst forgotten hats and fake mustaches lay destiny. Where others saw a health and safety hazard, Rod saw potential, saw a partner, a lifeline, naming it Emu, having no idea that he'd just discovered his own personal Frankenstein's monster. Returning to the UK in the early 70s, Rod unleashed his new act on an unsuspecting British public.
You're going to sleep. Go to sleep.
70s Britain was a decade of glam rock, space hoppers, and a national pride for their queuing etiquette. And into this orderly world burst a bird with no manners whatsoever. The premise of the act was deceptively simple. Rod was the mild-mannered handler of a wild, uncontrollable, and utterly mute bird. Emu didn't need a voice. Its language was anarchy. It would lunge, peck, and wrestle its co-stars into submission, while Rod, the hapless straight man, tried desperately to apologise for the feathered carnage.
But Mr. Reynolds has a black belt in karate.
That's right.
Why did you pick an emu? I couldn't get my hand up a budgery.
The act was pure, unadulterated slapstick, and it struck a chord. He even won over the royals, famously presenting a bouquet to the Queen Mother, only for Emu to try and eat it.
And as I bowed, Emu's head came face to face with her bouquet. And again, it was just a reaction. He went shum, like that. And she was left holding a bunch of stalks.
This act of disdain for the royal family would later inspire the Sex Pistols to do the same. But his crowning moment, the performance that would define his career and seal his fate, came in 1976. The chat show Parkinson was the holy grail of British TV.
What are you going to do now? He's lost without it, you know.
For a few minutes, Rod was in control, but you can't cage a wild animal. Emu began to fidget, eyeing up Parky like a spectacularly plump worm.
You should have cleaned it before you come out here.
Rod tried to placate him, but the audience could feel the tension, and then it happened.
I knew we should never have booked it.
A man who interviewed Muhammad Ali and Orson Welles is now being curb-stomped by an emu. It was the comedic equivalent of a heavyweight title fight. Parky, the undisputed champion of the chat show circuit, versus an arm-length avian psychopath. And there was only ever going to be one winner. Now on screen, Parky may have looked like he absolutely hated that interaction. Well, that's because he did. He hated it.
I didn't quite know what it was, the degree, otherwise I wouldn't have booked him with hindsight.
Rod Hull and Emu became one of the most notorious acts in the country. Bird and man were now as one. They were inseparable. The Parkinson incident opened every door. Rod and Emu were everywhere. Primetime television series, sellout tours, endless merchandise. The money just poured in. In fact, he purchased a sprawling 32-bedroom Elizabethan mansion in Kent. But Restoration House wasn't just a home, it was also a black hole for cash. A stately money pit that demanded constant feeding. His restoration of the property became an obsession. But he was achieving everything he'd ever dreamed of. Except a dark shadow was beginning to fall over his success. A shadow with a long neck and a big yellow beak.
They asked Rod to appear on the Comedy Awards, and he turned up without the emu, and everybody was furious. I went mad.
Emu's world is a world full of sunshine, a world full of make-believe. This is the place where you can see sunshine, somewhere you won't want to leave.
All this adulation started going to his head. It gave him an almost delusional sense of self-importance. He never wanted to be just a puppeteer. He was also a writer, a comedian. He saw himself as a performer in his own right, but nobody wanted to see just Rod Hull.
I'm very relieved, so am I, not to see Emu with you. Does it feel a little bit odd, sort of?
No, I feel quite normal without him.
He was becoming trapped in a gilded cage, forever shackled to that puppet that he'd found in that dusty cupboard, morphing from an emu into an albatross. By the 80s, the successful act now had pigeonholed him as a kid's entertainer, artistically cock-blocked by a puppet. And with time, the constant physical exertion became exhausting. The psychological burden of being perpetually upstaged by his own arm was becoming unbearable.
Yes, you didn't bring Emu today.
No.
Why not?
Oh, he's very tired. I thought I wouldn't bring Emu just for a change, if you didn't mind.
In 1983, their big chance to crack America was dealt a death blow.
He usually carries a very large, uncontrollable Australian bird under his arm. Would you welcome Rod Hull and Emu?
On The Tonight Show, Rod was warned prior not to touch either the most powerful man on TV, Johnny Carson, or comedian Richard Pryor, especially as he'd just undergone reconstructive surgery on his face after setting himself on fire. Emu predictably went into business for himself.
That bird doesn't like me. What?
It's taken to you.
He began to resent the bird with a passion. Emu had a strange effect on him. The shy man with a stammer became an aggressive, often confrontational performer when the bird was on his arm.
He was able to enact what he wanted to do through Emu and be devilish than what he should have been.
There's Rod Hull's hand in the beak of the emu. It's that hand that is attacking the people. When I told him about this, he agreed that it wasn't right. And at the next performance, he did it the same way.
It was a release, but a toxic one. The puppet became a license for his own frustrations to boil over. He was fighting for his own identity against a silent, feathered foe of his own making. While wrestling with his creative demons, his financial world was beginning to crumble. He had the Midas touch on stage, but in his personal finances, everything he touched seemed to turn to debt. His magnificent home required a king's ransom to maintain, and on top of that, a colossal unpaid tax bill from the Inland Revenue came knocking. Unfortunately, the taxman cannot be overpowered by incredible slapstick, because he always gets his man, whether he has an emu on his arm or not.
Like everybody who's got a novelty comedy act, when the novelty wears off, where do you go?
At the same time, the 80s comedy landscape was changing. Suddenly, it was filled with angry young men shouting about Thatcher, and a man being mauled by a bird seemed passé, man.
Join us again if you can. Bye for now.
Stop it. Pick it
Have
up.
a good weekend. Good.
He lost his precious TV show Emu's World, and instead of it being a sobering, humbling experience, his ego remained as resolute as ever.
I think the network had decided we'd run our time. Rod came into the dressing room and there were several of us there, and he said, right, this is the end. I'm not your meal ticket any longer.
Rod Hull and Emu, I like to compare them to the splendid bejeweled clock tower in the centre of Times Square, New York, ladies and gentlemen. That hasn't worked since 1978 either.
TV work started drying up, but the bills kept coming. In 1994, the inevitable happened.
The comedian Rod Hull has put his home, Restoration House in Rochester, up for sale.
Rod Hull was officially declared bankrupt with debts of nearly £500,000, his mansion repossessed, and the man who once commanded thousands a night was now taking bookings for a few £100s at birthday parties. Sure, the applause was still there, but it was thinner. It was more nostalgic, the sound of a career in its twilight. Sure, he did keep making occasional TV appearances, but it was almost like he was just trying to be a parody of himself.
Well, will you pack it up? Wait a minute, stop it. You're right. You ought to have cleaned it before you come out.
You used to live like this.
Like what?
That.
Yes.
And now you live like this?
Yes.
What interests me is, did your friends stay with you? Your friends in show business, did they stay with you?
No, that was an unfortunate thing. You know, I've worked with a lot of people for a lot of years and given work to a lot of people as well. But once that happened, you know, the phone just went quiet.
You're not feeding it, are you?
And so Rod came on stage on his own, and as far as I was concerned, that was the last time I worked with him.
In his final years, Rod found a fragile peace. His wife had left him, but his son had returned from Australia to live with him in a small rented cottage in East Sussex. Sure, it was a less lavish existence than what he was once used to, but he gardened, spent time with his son. He was by all accounts content. But the universe, it seems, had one last cruel blow to deliver. On the evening of March the 17th, 1999, Rod was at home with his son. They were trying to watch a crucial Manchester United football match, but the television reception was terrible. And despite the wet and windy conditions, the 63-year-old decided to fix it himself. He climbed the ladder onto the roof of the bungalow to adjust the aerial when his son inside heard a crash.
He fell from the roof of his home in Sussex last night as he was trying to adjust a television aerial.
In a strange twist of irony, the man who'd once conquered TV was ultimately defeated by it. However, in death, the very public that had perhaps taken Rod Hull for granted, the industry that had often overlooked the man behind the puppet, suddenly remembered. The tributes poured in.
Because no matter what Rod and I did, the rest of our lives, we could have won the Pulitzer Prize for writing the best novel or whatever. We don't ever remember being attacked by an emu, so what the hell.
He was a bit eccentric, but I suppose we all are in our business. I mean, we all make our livings with our hands at things. And he was very clever, though. I mean, I think he was very underestimated.
Suddenly, Rod Hull the entertainer, Rod Hull the creative mind, was being celebrated. The man who'd often felt eclipsed by his own creation was finally given his due. It was a bittersweet irony that only in his absence could his unique talent be truly appreciated.
He was, say his friends, a crazy man who had lived a crazy life.
In conclusion, Rod created a character that transcended the puppet itself. Emu became an icon of mischievous anarchy, a symbol of playful rebellion. Despite the resentment, despite the struggles, Rod cherished his creation. He just wished that Emu hadn't loved the spotlight quite as much. In the end, Rod's story is a cautionary tale, a warning that sometimes a character or a creation can become bigger than the creator itself. And the very thing that makes you can also be the thing that breaks you. He was a gifted performer, trapped in a prison of his own making, forever defined by the bird that would not fly away. So what do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into weird showbiz history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange and fascinating stories from the world of entertainment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.